I bought a luxury house. It was supposed to be the crown jewel of my later years, the place I could finally rest after decades of sacrifices, hard work, and disappointments. I had raised my son alone after his father passed away young, and I thought maybe naively that once he married, once he had his own life, I would still be respected as the foundation on which all of this stood. I was in my late 50s, still sharp, still strong, finally with the freedom to enjoy the fruits of everything I had sown. But what happened in that house shattered every illusion I had about loyalty, family, and trust. And before I tell you how one phone call turned everything upside down, I need to warn you what you're about to hear may change the way you see the people closest to you. Subscribe to Shattered Bonds if you want to hear stories that show the darkness that hides behind everyday smiles. Because this one still chills me to my core. It began 2 months after my son and his wife. My daughter-in-law moved into the house. With me, it wasn't meant to be permanent. The house had 6 bedrooms, sprawling gardens, and wide glass windows that opened into the forest beyond. I didn't mind them staying for a while. They were saving for their own place, and I thought, why not let them breathe in the comfort I had built? My daughter Ina Emma was polite enough in the beginning, sweet even. But there was always something underneath her smile that made me uneasy. Too polished, too quick. The kind of sweetness that doesn't stick, it slides right off like oil. At first, everything seemed normal. We shared dinners, talked about their plans, laughed occasionally in front of the television. But then little things began to change. My belongings moved from one place to another. My favorite chair in the living room was suddenly occupied whenever I entered, as if I were the guest. Emma began speaking of the house as if it were hers. Subtle comments. We should paint the kitchen, or our garden would look better with roses. Not mine. I brushed it off, thinking she was just excited. Maybe nervous about her place in this family. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I came back from the store carrying heavy bags of groceries. I walked into my house and froze. 2 strangers were sitting comfortably on the couch, shoes off, sipping tea. Emma's parents, they looked at me with polite smiles as if they belonged there. "Mom," Emma said brightly, "these are my parents. They'll be staying here for a while." Stood there in silence, groceries digging into my hands, my heart pounding. For a while, I put the bags down and said, "Excuse me?" She didn't flinch. They've sold their apartment, and until they find something new, they'll stay here. There's more than enough room. More than enough room. In my house, without asking, without even warning me. I turned to my son, hoping he would step in, but he just looked away. Shamed or afraid, I couldn't tell. That's when the first crack of betrayal hit me. I pulled Emma aside and whispered, "This is not a hotel. You should have asked me." Her eyes flicked with something sharp, something ugly. "It's not your house anymore," she said flatly. The words rang in my ears. Not my house. I bought it with my own money. I signed the papers. I held the keys. But in her mind, I was already erased. I tried to keep the peace at first. I told myself it was temporary, that maybe they'd only stay a week. But days turned into weeks. Emma's parents settled in as if they had always belonged. They filled the kitchen with their groceries, their routines, their rules. I would wake up and find them sitting at the breakfast table reading the newspaper, like it was their family tradition. They parked their car in my driveway. They invited friends over for dinner in my dining room. Slowly, I felt my home dissolving beneath me. The tipping point came late one night. I heard voices in the living room, sharp whispers that carried through the air vents. I crept down the stairs and stopped just before the last step. Hidden in the shadows, Emma was speaking. She doesn't matter. She's old. Once everything is in our name, this will all be ours anyway. My stomach dropped. My knees nearly gave way. They were planning, scheming, to erase me completely. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about all the years I worked to afford this house, the long nights alone, the sacrifices. And now I was being pushed out, cornered in my own home by people who had no claim. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw them out. Instead, I waited. I planned. Because sometimes silence is the sharpest knife. The next morning, I greeted them with a smile. I cooked breakfast. I played along, even laughed at their jokes. I made them believe I was defeated, harmless. Inside, though, I was building toward one decision, one call. The weeks dragged on, and the tension grew. Emma became bolder, treating me like a guest. One afternoon, when I suggested we rearrange the furniture, she cut me off. Why? This isn't your house anymore. You should be grateful we're letting you stay. That was it. The mask slipped completely. I realized then that I was no longer seen as family, but as an obstacle. So I made my move. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. You see, when I bought that house, I had been cautious. I had seen enough betrayal in my life to know that trust should always be balanced with protection. I never transferred ownership. My name alone was on every document. More than that, I had placed the house in a trust with clear conditions. If anything happened to me, it would not pass to my son directly, but to a charity I had chosen. There was no loophole for Emma to exploit. The lawyer listened quietly, then asked, "Would you like me to proceed with eviction?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "All of them." That evening, while Emma's parents laughed in the living room and Emma scrolled on her phone like a queen on her throne, there was a knock on the door. A sheriff, standing tall, papers in hand. "Ma'am," he said, looking directly at me. "As the legal owner of this property, you have the right to enforce these notices immediately." Emma jumped up, her face draining of color. I took the papers from his hand, walked into the center of the room, and placed them on the coffee table. "It's a notice of eviction. You, your parents, and anyone else who thinks they own this house have 72 hours to leave." Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her parents stared, stunned. My son sat frozen, his head in his hands. You can't do this," Emma finally stammered. "This is our home." "No," I said quietly, my voice sharper than any scream. "This was always my home. And you forgot one thing: never bite the hand that built the roof over your head." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt power return to me. The fear melted away, replaced with something stronger: clarity. They packed in silence. The laughter stopped. The whispers ended. By the third day, the house was empty except for me. The echoes of their betrayal lingered in the walls, but the air felt lighter. I walked through every room, reclaiming it inch by inch. And that was when it hit me. Sometimes family is not defined by blood or marriage, but by respect. And when respect dies, so does the bond. I never let them back in. My son tried to visit once, alone, months later. We talked on the porch. I told him he was always welcome, but his choices would determine the distance between us. He cried. I cried. But I stood firm, because some lessons cannot be softened. If you've stayed with me through this story, let it be a reminder. Never let anyone erase you from your own life. Betrayal can come wearing the warmest smile, but you are stronger than you think. If you want more stories that reveal the hidden darkness behind ordinary doors, don't forget to subscribe to Shattered Bonds.